That's correct, and that's that is really great. I mean, again, going back to as a layman person, and anybody listening to this will probably be like, "Why? How can they do that?" But the fact is, guys, they can and they have. So, I think every time you do something, like say you maybe say it's not rich or but whoever it is, definitely get someone to look over, even just simple as a car machine. Say someone looks over it and it costs you a couple of £100. It's definitely worth it, in my opinion, to do that.
And it's whether there is competitors of Evalon that don't have the clause.
Yeah.
If they're all the same, there's nothing you can do about it other than be as open and transparent.
But at least you know who you are,
yeah.
don't you?
There's something I call them poison pills. It's a common thing.
Poison pills.
Poison pills. Little clauses in contracts, and maybe I could rattle a couple of examples off. There was one client I worked with which had a large £30 million loan from what they considered to be a friendly, not competitor, but someone they worked with in the same industry. But within that clause, there was a clause that said if they missed a payment or they couldn't pay it back at the end of the term, there was an end date to the agreement, which my client assumed would just roll. But actually the clause said, if you don't make the payment on that date, £30 million, we will take over your entire company. Yeah, poison pill.
Wow. Oh my God, yeah.
That I do a lot in bridging finance. Now, most bridging finance...
Like bridging loans, that?
Bridging loans, say, against property. And there are always default clauses, and most quality, good lenders will have clauses in there where you have a default rate at the end. So if you get to the end 12 months, you might have been paying 1% a month, but if you go into default, you go to 2% a month. Yeah?
Well, that's still okay.
It's okay. But the poison pill clause with some of them is, if you default, we will charge the default rate back to day one.
So
to the start of the loan.
So that's very interesting, because some of the buy now, pay later schemes look like that, don't they? So you buy now, pay later, and then you default, and they go back to day one.
Back to day one. So you've got to watch that. Those sort of things.
That's anybody that's, maybe I'm not going to mention any names at this point, but say you was going to buy a sofa or something like that, and you do buy now, pay later. You've got to be careful there, because if you buy it and you're thinking I can afford it, because some people don't want to. I find this, they don't want to tell me the position, so they do buy now, pay later, they put themselves under stress, and then when it defaults, it can go back to the beginning at a higher rate, and it's not 2%.
It's a lot more.
That was 7.9%.
Exactly.
It's 11.
Yep.
So you've got a massive jump there. So then, bit of advice there, and this is not my opinion, that if you can't do buy now, pay later, just look at the stuff which is interest bearing, because you might be better off doing that.
Yeah. And probably the last example I'll give you, which came out relatively recently for me, because it was on the back of a client having this issue, and we got a lawyer I know who's very, very, all over contract law to look at it just to confirm that it was actually true. There's a very, very well-known lender who does lots of business finance loans, and they do unsecured business finance covered by a personal guarantee. So the personal guarantee works.
So, for instance, say my father, for instance, was say I want to take it, and I say, unfortunately my dad's passed away. This is just an example. Dad, can you lend me some money? I can't, no, son, you've got it on your own. But what I'll do is I'll PG the money for you.
Yeah.
So if that happens and I default, he's responsible for the debt.
That's right. Or if it's a loan into your business, you as a director would give a personal guarantee as well as the business. So if the business defaults, you will pay for that loan as the director or shareholder. Now, what normally happens is that when you repay the loan, everybody assumes your personal guarantee liability is gone, and in theory you can ask for that back, and you can ask for a piece of paper back saying that it's gone, and that's usual. This particular lender does unsecured loans, and what transpired that we found out was that it's in perpetuity, it lasts forever. So the scenario.
So when you say it lasts forever, do you mean that it never goes away, the PG?
It never, and worse than this is the bit that our client discovered. Let's say, Mick, you take this loan out in your business today, you repay it in 18 months, it's all gone. As far as you're concerned, it's all paid back. The scenario is you then sell your business, new directors come in, shareholders, take another loan with that same lender. If they default in 5 years' time, your PG still stands to that lender for that new loan.
Passes down the business like, wow.
I couldn't believe. I said, I can't be true. I said, well, this is why we got lawyers involved to have a look at it. And her view was, but look, that's what their contract says. But she thinks it's challengeable if it's in the law. Now the lender will say, "Oh, we never take that. We never ask for it, but it's there just in case," which means they can.
Correct. So why would it be there?
Exactly. So give it back. So they do, and they refuse point blank to let my client off that clause, and to give it back. And it appears it's quite, you know. And so this is a big company, Funding Circle. I'm going to tell you who it is. Yeah. It's them. Right, so you see them all on TV and everything else. Now that's what our lawyers have said. Now whether they can change different views, that's how it's come up. That's how that came about.
That's interesting. That's really scary because I can't even believe that. Like,
but we use Funding Circle, you know, and again, I've used this term. I'm not a bank basher or a lender basher.
You just give facts, aren't you?
It is what it is, and as long as you aware of this when you get into it, you know, it's my job to say these things and what happens. And we put lots of loans with them. They lend the money to businesses, support them, same as lenders all over the place do.
I think like what's happened to me and what you're saying there is that it's very rare. I've not met one person yet in the whole circle that I am going in. And I have got access to loads of people within the masterminds and the stuff I do, as you know. And I've not met one person where this has happened to. Now, the fact of the matter is, say it only happens to 1% of people, or 0.5% or 1%, or whatever it is. Still a lot of people, isn't it, that it happens to? Yeah. And that's why you don't hear about it, because I might tell, and to be quite frank, if you say that the bank's holding money, there might be in a bit of an embarrassment there, because somebody might say, well, hang on a minute, what's he up to? So there's a lot, I mean, I'll openly say I did nothing wrong. And what surprised me when you pointed this out to me, made it all clear to me, is that I've had finance, taking credit card payments for 19 years. I've never had a clawback. The lady who came out, who sold me the package, the reason why I went with this particular company is because they were far cheaper on the rates. At no point did she tell me any of this, and she filled out, and I just signed it because I'm dyslexic. So I trusted this lady. But to be fair to her, she probably even know herself. So I think they're not, I mean, if they'd have dragged my attention to that at that point, you take deposits, I would have said, well, what do you mean? And then they just said, do you know they can hold in your money? Then I would have said, look, we need to have an update, because in my opinion, for someone that's layman, because everybody's taking car payments now, tradesmen, you see all that tell me you can do it with so many different people. If all these terms and conditions are in place and they get a hold of this, at some point they might decide to claw money in, because ultimately they can. So I think there should be some sort of cheat sheet that they give out, transparency that we understand, because you showed me that contract and you read it out to me and Danny understood it, but even the girls in the office, they was reading it to me, but they wasn't picking out the points that was relevant to me. So I was completely knackered, you know, with being dyslexic and stuff. It was such a shock. And then Richard explained to me, and then I'm like, oh my God, because it made sense. But I think it's important that you either get someone like yourself or a solicitor to just look over some agreements, because let's face it, you couldn't put a gas check on your boiler. That sort of stuff. So I think everyone's
I understand why people don't, because there's a cost to it, and particularly, you know, solicitors, we know how much they cost, but that's the way of the world. That's it. What it is. Yeah. Have you got any